What's up, everybody? And this is pretty unplanned, and this is audio only up on the YouTube. I was going to set up my camera for this, but it's late at night, and I just want to kind of get this out because I just saw this movie, and I really, really want to talk about it. So I'm talking about Barbarian. This came out last month, I think, to theaters, and it just popped up on HBO Max on Tuesday, the 25th, I believe. So that's how I watched it, and whew, man, what a movie! And I had I compare this so much when I was watching it and talking with my wife about it. It reminded me of Malignant in a sense of it's a much better movie when you don't know anything about it, and that's why I'm so glad I did get a chance to see this movie completely blind. I knew that it was a crazy, insane, twisted movie, but I had nothing spoiled for me. I had no idea what the plot was going to be. And honestly, if you want to see this movie, see it completely blind. Don't even let any bit of the plot get exposed to you. You know, because the only thing that I had seen for this movie, because I had heard word of mouth about it, I heard people talking about it on Twitter, I saw it on different, movie review YouTube channels. So I was like, okay, what is this? And I also saw a lot of people saying, like, don't read anything about it, just, go in. So I was like, okay. I actually got tricked by the marketing for this movie, because there was a trailer for this movie that just said Justin Long's next movie. And as someone who is like, I don't think I've seen Justin Long in a lot of stuff, it was a random thing. So I click on it, and then, yeah, brilliantly it's set up to look like a typical, like Justin Long rom-com sort of movie. And then it leads to what this movie is, like a brief, like, shots of it. And I was like, oh, that's genius. Okay, I'm even more intrigued. And then I also found out that the guy that wrote it and directed it, Zach Kreger, he's one of the members of the Whitest Kid You Know. And, man, you could, somebody with more time than me and much better at research than I am needs to make that video essay or that podcast where they sit down and they talk to Jordan Peele, they talk to Zach, and they talk to there's a couple other examples too of directors or actors, writers that have been in comedy, done a lot of comedy, and then transitioned into horror. And we talked about it on the off-panel, off-topic Spooktacular, which is also dropping today. That's right, you're getting double dose of content for Halloween. Self-plug. We did talk about that, where we said that there's a thing that it could be the difference between horror and comedy is timing. I think that's true. And I think this movie is a great example of that. There's a lot of really funny moments in this movie. And even the ending, I kind of like. The third act, I kind of just was blown away by how bizarre and strange this movie is. So, hats off, I guess. I'm kind of debating on how I want to do this video, because there's part of me that wants to just hold off on spoilers and let you go see that and experience that. But there's also parts that I want to address some themes and some choices and twists. Sorry, my air freshener humidifier thing went off and it scared my dog. He's down here while I'm recording. Okay, we're back. We are back. So I think what it really is going to be, I'm going to just say to you now, get the drop ready, everybody. It's going to be simple as this.
Pizza time.
That's right, it's pizza time. Spoilers are on. So, again, even with the spoilers, I still think there's some things that I might want to hold off on because I would love to chat with another person and get their perspective on it. Maybe I can convince my wife to talk about it, but whatever. We're just let's just dive into it. So this movie is a great example of someone using the genre, using the tropes to its benefit, and creating honestly one of the most insane, bizarre, over the top, fantastic horror movies I've seen. And I truly didn't think that I could see something. And again, back to *Malignant*. Again, these are two completely different movies, two completely different styles of horror. But I think it goes back to, it was a movie that I did not expect it to go to where it went, and it completely shocked me and excited me, and I just fell in love with it. Same thing here. This movie actively tries its best to constantly mess with you as the viewer, and instantly has tension built in, especially when, because by the way, I'll give it to HBO Max as well. They did a great job where they said, oh, it's two people sharing an Airbnb, and then it's all part of a more twisted, cynical thing. And it's like, oh, that gives me nothing. Perfect. I always appreciate that because, again, no idea what this movie was going to be. And the fact that they get Bill Skarsgård to do this movie, to be the weird dude that's already at the Airbnb, and that whole thing where there's constantly tension because you as the viewer are thinking the same thing she is, being cautious and always have a guard up because you literally just met this person. And then, it has the conversation, I hope you have if you've seen the movie at this point. It has that setup as well in the living room where they're chatting. They've had a little bit of wine. They're talking to each other. And, she kind of lays out the theme of the movie and what we're going to be expecting about, essentially saying, and really ties back to the title of men can be messy and be reckless and women can't. And it's also told at its perspective of, well, one, truth. Two, it's not trying to be something where you could see one of the anti-SJWs, anti-fans, pointing out that it's so cringy and feminist. It's really not. Its message is simply saying that there are differences between men and women, and that men are much more reckless than women because they're allotted to be in our society, and that's just the way it is. And I love the idea of naming the movie Barbarian. Because, again, we're in full spoilers now, so I'm talking about everything in this movie. The idea for the title by Barbarian, I think, is clever if it is this. Now, I don't know if this is exactly what Zach has said at all. But I think the idea to name it Barbarian, my wife and I were kind of wondering, why that's such an interesting choice. And it makes sense in the context of the real villains of this movie are the two rapists. The two men that did something horrible and violated women and mistreated women. And it goes back to, they were barbaric acts, and it was just such a good example of that to its extreme. And I really love that. Also, I got to give it up to Justin Long, who, and again, playing with your expectations and really turning what you would believe as an audience on its head and being like, hey, this is Justin Long. I've seen him, I've seen him play douchebag characters before. Matter of fact, I just recently watched Drag Me to Hell with my wife because she had never seen it. And he has that charming look to him and that leading man quality to him that we had, in the early 2000s. And we've seen him in leading roles before, so we know he's charismatic. But then you also find out he's actually a shitty person, not to the extremes. Drag Me to Hell, he's not that bad. He's just kind of a douche. But in this movie, oh boy, again, when you meet him, especially in the way that it's hard, and I like how he did this, where it's a hard cut, to ease the tension, because we just saw the mother, which is what they call this character, brutalize Bill Skarsgård, like smash his head into the side of the wall of the basement, and then hard cuts to Justin Long, and he's singing a song, and he's driving, and it's sunny, and it looks like it's another typical Justin Long movie, which is the B-roll that they used in some of the shots they used for the trailer of Justin Long's new movie, which I thought was smart. And then it takes a hard left turn into the fact that there's accusations of rape for him. The actor AJ Gilmore? AJ something, I don't remember. But when they get into all that, you're like, whoa, holy shit. And being an audience that has rooted for Justin Long as a leading man in the past, and he's done, a lot of, I haven't seen all of his movies, but I've heard he's done some really good like rom-coms and stuff like that, and I've seen some of his movies. But we've seen him as a guy we've wanted to root for, and then to see it go there and then go even further, where you find out like, oh no, he's actually a douche, because he immediately calls his rapist a lying bitch, like immediately. And later he throws out the F slur when he calls his friend to go have drinks, and then it's just kind of incredible of like how bad of a character he really is. And his death is so fitting, like, because it's so funny how this movie is made, and it plays with your expectations a lot. And to have him have those accusations, and then later, after he shoots Tess, when he pretty much confesses it without saying it, and I thought that was such a smart scene. And I was, again, talking to my wife after we watched the movie, and I was thinking, like, that was so smart how he did that, by making the omission of, like, using him shooting Tess as a way to basically say, yeah, he raped that woman. And he's such a shitbag. And by the time he gets killed, you're like, fuck yeah, he deserved it. And again, playing with the themes, we also have the character of Frank, who's like, oh my God. Again, props to Zach, knowing that he doesn't it's show don't tell. And thank God he didn't do it. Like, that he showed how do I say that? How do I phrase this properly? He showed or implied these horrible acts without having to show them, and I am thankful for that, because I talked about it in the Spooktacular. I don't like when there's rape in movies. I don't like it when it's in shows. It's hard for me to watch, and I get that's the intent a lot of times. It's just, man, it really bothers me. And so to have it as subject matter but not having to show it, I really do appreciate that. And I think it's smartly done in the writing. And the implication of it is so good and smart. And like his whole backstory, or like his whole flashback sequence as well, is a great use of the style of this movie. There's so many different things that he does with directions. He uses a POV shot. He'll do shots where it's like almost like a fisheye look, and then the whole flashback, where he with what he does with Frank. I don't think it's completely 4x3, but I could be wrong. But it definitely had the bars on the side, and it definitely had that implication of a different time frame. And just how he uses implication with that character is so good and so smart. And the more that movie unravels and you see it, and all these horrible things that Justin Long's character did, or AJ, I guess is his name, and Frank, those two characters, and how they treated women, and then you see at the end of the movie, it's oddly kind of, you're rooting for the mother. At the end, you're kind of on the mother's side, and it's kind of a sad moment, but it is kind of a smart moment in terms of themes of, like, both these men have been killed. Both these brutal, horrible abusers are gone, and it's just these two women. And it's almost kind of strange, because you almost root for the mother at a certain point. of just how these two were treated throughout this movie. And it is kind of awesome that Tess came out of this alive, because the fact that AJ fucking threw her off a water tower so he could survive, sacrificing her after he had shot her. It's just so great where that moment where he goes down and tries to justify what he did, and the mother just fucking literally splits his head in half, and that's just fucking amazing. But yeah, it's just I really like. I expected something to be crazy, and I didn't know how I'd feel, and just was like, I want to see a good, crazy new horror movie, because I know there's been so many that come out this year, and I was completely blown away, because the fact that I'm still thinking about this movie, and I was just so compelled to talk to you guys about it, says so much about the direction, and I really like it. It's kind of crazy. I would say it's one of the best eras of horror right now, and a lot of it is coming, like I said earlier, from traditionally comedic performers and writers, and that's fucking awesome. I love it, because it is true. There are so many similarities between these two genres, and there's so much you can do with both and learning from both. And again, Jordan Peele, I'm not even comparing these two, but Jordan Peele's horror movies still have a good amount of humor in them. There's a lot of humor in this, especially when AJ finds out the whole basement setup, and he doesn't really care, because he's, again, so selfish and so focused on trying to make money so he can get legal help to sue this woman for defamation. It's kind of funny how he just does not know. He's so oblivious to the whole thing. And yeah, man, I love Barbarian. It's a fun movie, and there was somebody I saw on Twitter that used the Madison scene from She-Hulk, where it's like, first it was fun, first it was spooky, then it was fun, then it was scary again, but then it was fun again. That's actually probably one of the best descriptions of this movie. Yeah, I loved it, and unfortunately I didn't get to see it until after we recorded the off-panel, off-topic Spooktacular, so because I'm sure Grace and I would have talked about it there, but hey, maybe we'll talk about it next year. Maybe we'll talk about it in a couple weeks. I don't know. Would you guys still be interested in Barbarian after Halloween? We'll find out, won't we? Thanks so much for technically watching this, because it's on YouTube. We'll be back next month. Well, we got the Spooktacular coming out today, and the next Monday is our Starship Troopers 25th anniversary retrospective. So a lot of cool shit happening on the channel.
Off panel, off topic with Jake and Tyler.